A trail register already filled out with tomorrow's date. In handwriting that matched no one who had signed in that week. A distress call rising from a canyon. Dispatch has no record of ever receiving it. An entire campsite matching a missing persons report from 1987. A patrol vehicle. Engine running. Doors locked. No ranger inside. A radio check from a station that had been decommissioned 11 years earlier. 5 park rangers. 5 events that should never have happened. None of them have an explanation. Not one of them reported the full story through official channels. A trail register is one of the most ordinary objects in the national park system. Hikers sign in. They write down their destination, their expected return date. Rangers check the register to track who is in the backcountry. It is paperwork. Routine. The sort of task a ranger stops really noticing after doing it hundreds of times. Until the day the register already knows what tomorrow looks like. Story 1. The Register. This account came from a ranger who spent 9 years on backcountry patrol in Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She asked that we use only her first name. She has never spoken publicly about what happened. Her patrol route included a high-elevation trail in the Tennessee section of the park. The trailhead register was one of 17 she checked on a rotating schedule. She described the process as automatic. Open the register. Photograph the current page. Replace the log if necessary. Move on. She checked that register on a Tuesday morning in late September. The weather had been dry. Backcountry traffic over the previous weekend had been moderate. She removed the logbook, opened it to the current page, began photographing the entries. She almost overlooked it. The entries looked completely normal through Saturday. 6 hiking parties. Names. Group sizes. Destinations. Expected return dates. Everything matched what she had been tracking. Then she noticed 3 additional entries. They were dated Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of the following week. She stood there for several seconds trying to understand what she was seeing. The dates had not been written incorrectly. They clearly referred to days that had not happened yet. Each entry appeared to be written by a different person. The handwriting changed. The ink looked fresh. Nothing about the page suggested an obvious prank. She photographed everything, closed the register, continued her patrol. She later told us she did not want to remain at that trailhead any longer than necessary. Back at the ranger station, she checked the backcountry permit system. Every overnight trip into that section of the Smokies requires a permit. She searched for each of the 3 future entries. Nothing. No matching permits. No reservations. No groups scheduled for those destinations on those dates. She carried the photographs into her supervisor's office. He studied them for a long time. Then he asked one question. Which register box was this? She told him. He wrote down the location. He never asked how future dates appeared inside the log. He never suggested an explanation. He simply wrote down the register location and told her he would look into it. She returned to that same register the following Thursday. The date listed in the first unexplained entry. The entire logbook had been replaced. A fresh register sat inside the box. The page she photographed was gone. Her photographs became the only record that it had ever existed. She checked the permit system every day for the rest of that week. No permits were ever issued for the destinations listed in those 3 entries. About 2 weeks later, she asked her supervisor about the register again. He told her the register had been flagged with a maintenance note describing vandalism and that the issue had been resolved. She did not ask what the vandalism note actually said. Later she told us she did not think the answer would have explained anything. The 3 hiking parties listed in the register never appeared anywhere in the permit system. She does not know whether they entered the backcountry. She does not know whether they ever came back out. Every ranger knows what a genuine distress call sounds like. The voice, the urgency, the specific rhythm people use when they are truly in trouble. It is not something experienced rangers mistake for anything else. One ranger in Utah heard exactly that from deep inside a canyon. When he returned to the station, dispatch told him they had never received the call. Story 2. The Call. This account came from a ranger who spent 6 seasons working in Canyonlands National Park. He has since left the Park Service. He asked us not to use his name or identify the specific section of the park. We have honored both requests. He was conducting a solo vehicle patrol along a high-clearance road overlooking a remote canyon system. The canyon below reached several hundred feet in depth. No maintained trail led to the bottom. Access required technical climbing equipment. It was early November. Late afternoon. The canyon floor already lay in shadow. He had the driver's window open because the weather remained mild and the dusty road made the cab uncomfortable with the windows closed. That was when he heard a voice. He stopped the vehicle immediately. The voice came from below him, somewhere on the canyon floor. He could not understand the words. He could hear the cadence. Broken, irregular. The unmistakable sound of someone calling while injured or in serious distress. He stepped out of the truck and moved to the canyon rim. He called down. The voice did not answer him directly. Instead, it continued for roughly 30 seconds. Then, it stopped. He immediately radioed dispatch. He reported a possible distress call from the canyon floor, provided his location, requested that technical rescue personnel be placed on standby. Dispatch acknowledged the transmission and said they would check the log. He remained at the canyon rim for approximately 40 minutes. Nothing. No further sound. No movement. Nothing below. When he returned to the ranger station, the dispatcher met him at the door. She told him something she could not explain. When she attempted to log his report, the transmission was missing. His radio check at the beginning of the patrol was recorded. His end-of-shift check-in was recorded. The distress call between them simply did not exist. He asked whether there had been a radio malfunction. She checked the system. Everything appeared normal. No missing transmissions. No equipment faults. Nothing unusual, except the one call they both knew had happened. He completed a formal incident report that evening. He documented the voice, the location, the time, and the missing radio log entry. He submitted the report through the normal reporting system. The following morning, his supervisor called him into the office. The report was already sitting on the desk. Before discussing anything else, his supervisor asked one question. Was the voice calling a specific name, or was it simply calling for help? He answered that it sounded like someone calling for help. He could not distinguish individual words. His supervisor nodded. He said he would assign a technical team to search the canyon when resources became available. The conversation ended there. He never learned whether anyone actually entered the canyon. He left the Park Service the following spring. Before leaving, he searched the incident reporting system for his submission. The report was gone. He still has the handwritten copy he kept for himself. Years later, he spoke informally with 2 other rangers who had worked that same section of Canyonlands during overlapping seasons. He did not begin by describing his own experience. Instead, he asked whether either of them had ever heard anything unusual from that canyon. The first ranger answered immediately, "Yes." He refused to elaborate. He simply changed the subject. The second ranger asked which canyon he meant. When he told her, she became very quiet. After a long pause, she explained that seasonal staff had an unofficial name for that canyon, not an official designation. Just something experienced, rangers called it among themselves. He asked what the nickname was. She looked at him for a moment. Then she quietly said she would rather not say it out loud. Every missing persons case inside the national park system creates paperwork, a report, a search record, a case number. Recovered equipment is documented. Recovered campsites are photographed. The information becomes part of a permanent file. At least that is how the system is supposed to work. One ranger in Olympic National Park discovered a campsite matching a missing persons file that, according to the records she searched, should not have existed. Story 3. The Campsite. This account came from a ranger who worked in Olympic National Park for 4 seasons during the late 2010s. She gave permission for us to use only her first name. She was conducting a welfare check on a solo backpacker who had failed to sign out at the expected time. The permit listed a remote drainage inside the park. The hiker was 2 days overdue. She located the campsite without difficulty. The permit holder was there, healthy, uninjured. He admitted he had simply lost track of the days. His permit was extended. That part of the story was completely routine. The campsite itself was not. The fire ring consisted of 2 concentric circles of carefully stacked stones. A double ring. She had rarely seen anything like it. As part of her documentation, she photographed the site before leaving. Later that day, she returned to the station and began filing her welfare check report. A fellow ranger noticed the photographs on her desk. He asked where they had been taken. She told him the drainage. He studied the photographs for several moments. Then he walked to a filing cabinet in the back office and returned carrying an old case folder. Inside was a missing persons report from 1987. The missing hiker had never been found. The report included a description of the last campsite discovered during the search. One detail immediately stood out. The fire ring. A double ring. 2 concentric circles of stacked stones. In the same drainage. She asked her colleague whether the campsite from 1987 had been mapped precisely enough to identify its location within the drainage. He showed her the coordinates recorded in the original report. She opened the GPS coordinates from her own welfare check. They matched. Allowing for the normal margin of error in older equipment, both reports pointed to the same campsite. The same fire ring. Separated by approximately 30 years, in a remote drainage that sees relatively little visitor traffic. She asked whether the missing persons case from 1987 remained open. He told her that technically every unresolved missing persons case remains open. She then asked whether anyone had documented the unusual fire ring in reports from the years between 1987 and her own visit. He said he would look into it. She asked again later. Then again several weeks after that. Each time he gave the same answer. He was still checking. Before she left Olympic National Park, she searched the internal reporting system herself. She found 2 additional welfare check reports connected to the same drainage. One from 2003, another from 2011. Neither report included photographs. Both described the campsite as undisturbed with evidence of recent use. Both were filed during October. Her own welfare check had also taken place during October. She has never returned to that drainage. She told us she would not feel comfortable going back alone. A patrol vehicle does not park itself. That statement should not require explanation. Yet one ranger supervisor in Glacier National Park spent an entire afternoon trying to understand how a missing ranger's truck ended up parked at a trailhead that was not part of her assigned route. The engine was still running. The doors were locked. There was no ranger inside. Story 4. The Vehicle. This account came from a retired ranger supervisor who spent more than 20 years working in Glacier National Park. He asked that we not identify either his name or the trailhead involved. He described this incident as the only event from his career that never settled into a satisfactory explanation. The ranger assigned to the vehicle was a seasonal employee in her second year. Experienced. Reliable. Well-regarded. Her patrol covered the western section of the park, a route she knew well. She checked in at 7:40 that morning. The route normally required about 6 hours. Radio check-ins were scheduled every 2 hours. The first one arrived on time. The second never came. The supervisor attempted to contact her repeatedly over the radio. After approximately 20 minutes, he began searching for the vehicle. Using the last confirmed position from her earlier transmission, he drove the assigned patrol route. He eventually located the truck. It sat at a trailhead that was not on her scheduled route. Parked correctly. Engine running. Every door locked. Her radio rested on the passenger seat where he could clearly see it through the window. He called her name. There was no response. He searched the trailhead. Then the first quarter mile of trail. Nothing. Approximately 2 hours later, another ranger located her nearly 3 miles from the truck. She sat quietly on a fallen log at the edge of a small clearing. She was not injured. She was not visibly distressed. According to the ranger who found her, she did not appear to notice his approach until he was only a few feet away. He asked whether she was all right. She answered yes. He asked what had happened. She said she did not know. She remembered pulling into the trailhead. She remembered noticing what she described as a shape near the tree line. After that, her memory simply stopped. She did not remember leaving the vehicle. She did not remember locking the doors. She did not remember walking 3 miles into the backcountry. She had been missing for approximately 4 hours. One detail especially stayed with the supervisor. Her boots were almost completely clean. The trail crossed muddy ground and 2 creek drainages. Anyone walking that distance should have carried obvious mud on their boots. The ranger who found her initially wrote that observation into his report. Then, for reasons he later admitted he could not explain, he crossed the sentence out. The supervisor completed an incident report and classified the event as a possible medical episode. He recommended that the ranger receive a medical evaluation. The examination found nothing unusual. She completed the remainder of the season without another incident. The following year, she did not return. She never gave a reason. Years later, the supervisor told us he still thinks about that afternoon. Not because of the missing time. Not because of the locked vehicle. Not even because of the clean boots. The detail he cannot forget is the way she was sitting when they found her. She did not appear frightened. She did not appear lost. She sat quietly at the edge of the clearing as though she were waiting for someone. Or something. When a radio station is decommissioned, it stops transmitting. That is the entire point of decommissioning. The equipment is removed. The frequency is reassigned or retired. The station goes silent. A ranger working in the North Cascades knew this better than anyone. She had helped process the paperwork when a ridge-top relay station was permanently closed. 11 years later, she heard it transmitting again. Story 5. The Transmission. This account was submitted directly to us. The ranger requested complete anonymity. We have honored that request. She spent 11 seasons assigned to a remote backcountry outpost in the North Cascades of Washington State. The outpost is accessible by a single forest road that closes each winter. By late October, she was often one of the last employees remaining before seasonal shutdown. The ridge above the outpost once supported a fire lookout and radio relay station. The lookout building still stands. The radio equipment does not. It was removed during the official decommissioning more than a decade earlier. She knows this because she signed the equipment removal paperwork herself while she was still a junior staff member. On the night of October 19th, she performed the routine evening radio checks, one frequency after another, confirming signal quality, logging anything unusual. When she reached the frequency once assigned to the abandoned relay station, a transmission came through. It was a routine radio check. The format was standard: station identification, signal quality request, over. The call sign belonged to the decommissioned ridge station. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she checked the current frequency assignment log. It confirmed exactly what she already knew. The frequency had been reassigned. The old call sign had been retired. She keyed the microphone and requested identification. The response came immediately. The same retired call sign. The same request for a signal report. Over. She contacted district dispatch. She reported the transmission, provided the frequency, provided the call sign, asked whether the frequency had been temporarily reassigned or whether another installation was using it. Dispatch placed her on hold. She waited exactly 9 minutes. When the coordinator returned, he confirmed there was no active assignment. The call sign remained retired. She asked whether an old transmitter could somehow still be operating. He said the equipment had been completely removed years earlier. Then he asked an unexpected question. Did the transmission come exactly on the hour or between hours? She checked her log. The transmission had arrived 11 minutes past the hour. There was a long pause. Finally, he said he would make a note of it and have someone look into the matter. She asked why the time mattered. He replied that he was not sure. He simply wanted to record it. She submitted follow-up requests through the normal reporting process. Both were acknowledged. Neither received an answer. She has now worked 4 additional seasons at that outpost. The transmission has never returned. Later, she contacted 2 retired rangers who had previously worked the same district. Neither knew about her experience before she mentioned it. Both recognized the retired call sign immediately. One admitted hearing it once during a night patrol years earlier. He assumed it was a routine test and never reported it. The second ranger became noticeably quiet. She admitted hearing the same transmission several times. Eventually, she stopped filing reports because no one at district seemed to know what to do with them. When asked what she believed was happening, she answered carefully. During 16 years in that district, she had seen things on that ridge the official record never acknowledged. When asked what those things were, she said she would rather not discuss them over the phone. They have not spoken since. She retired at the end of that season. 5 rangers, 5 national parks, 5 events the official record either cannot explain or no longer contains. A trail register that seemed to know tomorrow. A distress call dispatch never received. A campsite waiting in the same place across decades. A ranger discovered miles from a locked patrol vehicle with clean boots. A radio transmission from equipment removed 11 years earlier. We are not going to tell you what connects these accounts. We think you have already noticed the pattern. The investigation linked to in the description connects directly to the second story you heard tonight. We think you will recognize the similarities immediately. Subscribe if you would like to be here when the next account arrives. Whatever was transmitting from that abandoned station had apparently been doing so long enough that at least one experienced ranger simply stopped reporting it. That may be the most unsettling part of all. Stay safe out there.